Dear brothers and sisters, the saints in Christ, welcome to a new episode. This is our second and the last episode regarding the series of the history of using incense in the traditional churches or Coptic Orthodox Church in particular. In the previous episode, we've seen four sayings of the early fathers, and maybe Origenus was the most important one, when actually he mentioned very clearly there was no altar, there was no statues in the church at that time, and even there was no buildings at that time called churches at that time. All right, building the churches came as a necessity because the growing number of the believers. All right, but no altar, no incense, and accordingly there are no priesthood, no sacraments, and all that stuff. Today we'll continue more can say testimonies from the first 3 centuries of the fathers, where not only they said there was no incense, but even they forbid using incense in the New Testament. Before I go to the fathers, I'll get you something which actually shows that Pope Shenouda unfortunately was going opposite to what the father says. In his book, Comparative Theology, page 170 and 171, we can read together the following. Item 8. He says, in the book of the prophet Malachi, there is a prophecy about the continuation of offering of incense, and that it is not limited to the Jewish era. This is what Pope Shenouda says, but we'll see now it is totally opposite to what he says. The Lord says, for from the rising of the sun even to its going down, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. In every place incense shall be offered to my name, and a pure offering, for my name shall be great among the nations. Malachi 1:11. And now he comments, of course, worship among the Gentiles did not happen except in the era of Christianity. Thus, the Lord has included incense among the forms of Christian worship. This is absolutely opposite to what the Father said last episode, and also what we'll see this episode more than once. All right. So, if what he says is correct, this means what? This means the fathers that we read about them before were wrong. All right. We're not supporting this. This also means that what Saint Irenaeus, the father of the ecclesiastical tradition, was wrong, because as we've seen in the previous episode, that Irenaeus took the same verse and they said it means in the New Testament there is no offering of incense. This actually puts, I would say, responsibility on your shoulder to study the Bible properly, like read more than one interpretation, whatever, and you decide, and then bring you the fathers of the first 3 centuries. Let's continue, and also we'll come to some other fathers that will take the same verse and say this means there is no incense in the New Testament, but the incense is in a different understanding, different way. So now let's take number 5, a plea for Christians. This plea by Athenagoras, the Athenians, philosopher and Christian, from 133 up to 190, so like 2nd century. Chapter 13. Why Christians do not offer sacrifices. The framer or the maker and the father of this universe, like God, does not need blood, nor the odor of burnt offerings, nor the fragrance of flowers and incense, for as much as he is himself perfect, fragrance needs nothing. So assures God does not need any more burnt offerings, fragrance, or incense. This is number 5. So we finish this one. Number 6. Tertullian, Apology, chapter 30. Tertullian, 160 to 225 AD, of course. Being a servant of his, rendering homage to him alone, persecuted for his doctrine, offering to him at his own requirement that costly and noble sacrifice of prayer, that is Hebrew 10:22, dispatched from a chaste body and unstained soul, a sacrificed spirit, not the few grains of incense. So he says, I'm persecuted because of his name. I offered to him what he asked from me. I offered to him a perfect prayer according to Hebrews 10:22, dispatched from a pure or chaste body, unstained soul, a sanctified spirit, but not a few grains of incense. So this is Tertullian. Now come to number 7, Tertullian on idolatry, chapter 9. Professions of some kinds allied to idolatry. He said the following: For they therefore offered to the then infant Lord that frankness and myrrh and gold to be as it were the close of worldly sacrifice and glory, which Christ was about to do anyway. Pope Shenouda said the opposite, by the way. He said when the wise men came and offered this means it's continued. But now Tertullian says that was the close of it because Jesus was about to finish it off anyway. In what sense? Because the whole system of worship was prophecies and symbols referring to the ultimate proper sacrifice that was completed by Jesus on the cross. So the whole system is gone. No priesthood, no sacrifices of any type, not incense, nothing. All right. So this is number 7. Number 8, Clement of Alexandria. We'll take about like 3 sayings for Clement of Alexandria. He's in the 150 up to 215. In his book, The Instructor, book 2, chapter 8, the title is On the Use of Ointment and Crowns. If then we say that the Lord, the great high priest, that is Jesus, offers to God, like the Father, the incense of sweet fragrance, let us not imagine that this is a sacrifice and the sweet fragrance of incense, but let us understand it to mean that the Lord lays the acceptable offering of love, the spiritual fragrance, on the altar. So this is one of the sayings of Saint Clement of Alexandria. Another saying for Clement of Alexandria, the Stromata or Miscellaneous, book 7, chapter 6. The title of this chapter is Prayers and Praise from a Pure Mind, ceaselessly offered, far better than sacrifices. You might look at it as a spiritual thing that when we read in detail, we'll see some really good reflection on the incense of the Old Testament. What does he say? He says, wherever we ought to offer to God sacrifice is not costly, but such as he loves, and that compounded incense which is mentioned in the law. You remember the Lord, when he asked Moses to do a certain type of incense to be used in worship, he gave him like the quantities and the components or ingredients of this particular incense, and even he warned that people should not do the same compound or composition at home. All right, so this is only for worship. So now he put a great reflection as what's in the New Testament. All right, so as mentioned in the law, is that which consists of many tongues and voices in prayer, or rather of different nations and natures, prepared by the gift of vouchsafed in dispensation for the unity of the faith, and brought together in praises which a pure mind and just and right conduct from holy works and righteous prayer. So he says in the New Testament, this incense that was in the Old Testament, composed of a few different ingredients, he said in the New Testament now, so this incense is not the real like incense, but actually it is composed of the prayers of people from different nations and different natures, and this offered like that. So it's really a great like reflection on the incense in the Old Testament and the new incense in the New Testament. And by the way, this is mentioned in the book of Revelation, and say that we saw many people like praising God from different nations, different tribes, and different tongues. So this is the I would say the New Testament incense in the understanding of Clement of Alexandria. So it is not anymore the real incense, but it is now this incense is the different tongues, the different nations, different whatever, like people like believers from different backgrounds. All these now this is and offering a pure I would say praises to the Lord. This is the New Testament's incense, according to what Clement of Alexandria said. Another saying for the same saint, again the book of his book Instructor, but this time book 3 chapter 12. He says the following: how then shall I crown myself, or anoint like myself with anointment, or offer incense to the Lord? He says, how can I do this? An odor of sweet fragrance, it is said, is the heart that glorifies him who made it. These are the crowns and sacrifices, aromatic odors, and the flowers of God. So it says, how can I anoint myself or offer the incense to God? Not the real ones, but it says, like when I cleanse myself or offer to the Lord, it is the heart that glorifies him who made it. So a heart glorifying the Lord made it. Made what? This is the crowns, this is the sacrifices, this is the aroma or the incense, and the flowers have to be offered to God, but not the real ones anymore. Number 10, another saying to Saint Clement of Alexandria, fragments of Clement of Alexandria, chapter 12. What does it say? He dwells on the earth, clothed in flesh. What does it mean? He already gone, but he will explain now. Thus also the blessed Peter hesitates not to say, you also, that we are the believers, as living stones. This is in 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 5. You also as living stones are built up a spiritual house, a holy temple, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God by Jesus. So this means what? In the New Testament, there is no altars, no sacrifices. We are no sanctuary. We are the new sanctuary. We are the spiritual building. We are the living stones. And accordingly, what we offer, we don't offer like physical sacrifices. We don't offer physical incense, but we offer reasonable sacrifices. This is number 11. Last one, number 12. Cyprian, 200 to 258 AD. Testimonies against the Jews. First book, chapter 16. The title itself says the following: that the ancient sacrifice should be made void and a new one should be celebrated. So what does he say? In Isaiah, he will bring Isaiah chapter 1. For what purpose to me is the multitude of your sacrifices? Says the Lord, I am full. I will not have the burnt sacrifice of rams, and the fat of lambs, and the blood of bulls and goats. For who has required these things from you, your hands. Isaiah 1 chapter 1. Also, in the 49th Psalm, should be 50, that is right, I will not eat the flesh of bulls, nor drink the blood of goats. Offer to God the sacrifice of praise. So he's saying, like even in the Old Testament, there were some prophecies that one day those bull sacrifice will stop and the praise will be the proper one. And pray your vows to the Most High, call upon me and in the day of trouble, and I will deliver you. And thou shall glorify me. In the same psalm, moreover, the sacrifice of praise shall glorify me. Therein is the way in which I will show him the salvation of God. All this Psalm 50. In the fourth Psalm 2, he's bringing another something from Psalm 4, the sacrifice of righteousness and hope in the Lord. Psalm 4 verse 5. So he's trying to bring from the Old Testament a few verses to assure that one day the sacrifice of bull will stop and only the praise sacrifice will continue. Likewise in Malachi, here we go, he's bringing in Malachi what Pope Shenouda said, but Pope Shenouda look at in the opposite way. Likewise in Malachi says, I have no pleasure concerning you, said the Lord, and I will not have an acceptable offering from your hands, because from the rising of the sun even unto the going down of the same, my name is glorified among the Gentiles, and in every place odors of incense are offered to my name, and a pure sacrifice, because great is in my name among the nations, said the Lord. Again, so we've seen now about like three fathers took the same verse that Pope Shenouda commented on and consider it as continuation of offering incense in the New Testament, but actually they took it opposite to that. So I wonder now if Pope Shenouda, someone achieved his desire that went to Europe or America to study the history, and he came back to him with what these findings, especially about incense. What Pope Shenouda that time would do? Would stop incense? Would stop priesthood? Will lead a Reformation movement in the church and quit priesthood and says that there is no altars anymore, ni priesthood, ni sacraments? Of course he will not. All right. So this to show you, dear brother and sister, those guys, whenever they say, we go by the fathers, no, you go opposite the fathers. Actually, this slogan, I would say something that you may like it or not. Actually, use this slogan. We don't explain the Bible or understand it the way each one according to his own, like the Protestant, but to understand the Bible as per the fathers. Actually, this is a slogan, I would say, to cover your nakedness of ignorance of the Bible. I repeat this again. Whenever they say we go by the fathers, no, this is not true. This is just a slogan that you use to cover the nakedness of your ignorance of the Bible. All right. So let's now finish this episode by again a good conclusion from Father Athanasius al-Makary, and where he is going now to assure that up to the 5th century there was no incense used in the Christian worship in the New Testament at all. And here we go. So what Pope Shenouda would do then. All right. So let's watch now this short clip and come back again.
خلاصة القول هي أن خلال القرون ال5 الأولى من العصر المسيحي اعتبر الآباء أنه لا ينبغي استخدام البخور في العبادة المسيحية، ودعموا كلامهم بالحجة الفلسفية القائلة بأن الله القدير باعتباره روحا غير مادية لا يمكن أن يسعد برائحة جسدية قط.
So let's conclude now our series as the following. Incense was not used in the New Testament worship in the church until the 5th century. So don't tell me it was from day one, or it was the church lived for 30 years with no Bible, but not one day with no sacraments. Here we go. So what you understand from this, dear brother and sister, if there is no incense, no altar, no priesthood, no sacraments, so the whole thing is what? It's collapsed. That's it. All right? It's entirely up to you. I remind you with the girl that was 16 and was trying to find the truth, and she was taking my Arabic post, translate them to find to hang into something that to understand. The Lord did not leave her alone, but he led her to the full truth. All right? I wish that it's a short one, but actually shows you what? I brought you 12 sayings of the fathers forbidding using this, and you get the whole. So it's entirely up to you. Share the video on your social media if you can, please. Give it a like if you think it's worth it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And unless the Lord comes, we'll meet again in another episode. May the Lord bless you all. سلام المسيح معكم.